Yo, what is going on YouTube? Smaldor here, and last few videos have pretty much all been about Pantheon, so I decided I finally was going to go ahead and do basically my top games that I've played in 2024, and I realized I actually had just over 10 games, so I specifically had chosen games that only released in 2024 that I played. I played a few other games that released in prior years, but decided to only pick the games that was out in 2024. Some of them are early access. You can see these two are early access games, and just because so many people consider it, so I put Shadow of the Erdtree on the list. Currently, this is not in any particular order other than just what I was remembering what I played. And so I figure right here on this video, we'll go ahead and start ranking these games in my order. For me, let's see, what have we played? We played FS7 Rebirth. We played Dragon's Dogma 2, and I just remembered another game that I played. That was out. Let's see if this one's out here too. Yep. I also played these. I remember I played these games too. We played 7 Rebirth, Dragon's Dogma 2, Unicorn Overlord. We played Core Keeper, Satisfactory, Metaphor, Refantasia, Dragon Age, The Veilguard, Knock on the Coffin Lid, Astrobot, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, PoE 2's Early Access, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, Early Access, Power World, and Enshrouded. This list, it's always one of those things where it's like, it's very easy to pick the top games. Because for me, it's going to look like, if I had to choose right now, just like straight off the top of my list, it's probably going to look something like this. Oops. And this is for me, you know, like a personal thing. I'm trying to think. It's probably going to look like this. So let's talk about it. Dragon Age: The Veilguard is a game that I actually played to completion on stream. I've played Dragon Age Origins multiple times. Dragon Age 2 one time, and I've seen a couple playthroughs for like refreshers when Inquisition came out. Excuse me. Played Inquisition a few times. I honestly enjoyed all of those. Dragon Age: The Veilguard is not a bad game. I finished it. It is, however, as a lot of other people have basically mentioned, it is a bad Dragon Age game. The main story, you know, is actually not bad. It's like not a bad main story, but everything outside of that, it just, for me, a big thing was the dialogue in the game. The dialogue in the game was really bad. If you could pretty much have the exact same meanings behind everything, but if it was just delivered, not necessarily delivered, because the voice actors actually were very, very good. It's just that if the lines that were written were better, but still had the same meaning, a lot of things would have been better. But it was written as if it was trying to appeal to young adult, teenage audience. Games rated M for mature, but it's clearly written for people like 12, 13 to maybe 17, or like, I'm assuming people in their early 20s are part of this group as well, where they just want things that they relate to in real life. I do not want that in my Dragon Age game. I want my Dragon Age game to transport me to this fantastical world that is dark. It is bleak. It is, you know, and yeah, there is some humor. There is going to be some goofiness with a few things here and there, you know. But at the end of the day, the story is, you know, the world is very dark and bleak. The story should be very dark and bleak. The characters should be, they should not be using terms and phrases that only exist in our real life world, that are also new for our real life world, that didn't even exist like 10 years ago. But again, I played to completion because the overall main story was still pretty good. The game visually looks good. The performance of all the voice actors was really good. You know, so I still play completion, but it is at the bottom of my list. Now, the next 4 games you can kind of put in any order purely because these were early access. None of these are 1.0. That includes Power World, Enshrouded, Pantheon, and Path of Exile 2. So that's why I have them at the bottom. I put Dragon Age behind them because, well, I just still thought the game overall was not great. Anyway. So I don't really want to talk about these games too much other than I enjoyed Power World. It honestly was the first time I really felt like I was playing like an open world Pokemon game. But it really was more like this game's Arc. The game's just Arc. It's a reskin of Arc. Enshrouded. I honestly want to go back and play when I get a chance. I only played when it very first went into early access. I did everything you can possibly do in that phase, but there have been multiple content updates since then, many of which seem very large, and I want to very, very much dive into the game again. Pantheon, I've gotten a lot of new subscribers on the YouTube channel. Thank you guys very much, and a lot of it is because of this game. I've put in probably over a couple hundred hours already into the game, at least. Man, I'm having like hiccups and stuff. This game has been blowing me away, even with all the problems and some cases, some of the direction and thinking behind the game from the creative director. But at the end of the day, the game really is giving me what I want. Question is there going to be enough content? I'll be taking a break coming in February, but with a lot of stuff coming up, so hopefully that'll give a lot of time for the game to add a lot more things, so then I will continue to have more things to do. Path of Exile 2. I love the fact the game is actually slower paced. I love the WASD movement, the WASD movement, to make it more run and gun type deal. I love that. That being said, before I was like Act 3 Cruel, which is basically the final act before you go to maps. A lot of big PoE content creators were basically saying the end game is not good right now. So I was like, you know what? And also all the third ascendancies and 2 of the main classes were not in the game. I'm just going to wait. I enjoyed everything that I played. The story actually had been really good. The game looks fantastic. Everything seems fantastic. I'm going to wait until the first big major content update to the game before I dive into it again. And I'm very much looking forward to it. So now we have basically my top 10 at this point. Coming in number 10 is Dragon's Dogma 2. I loved Dragon's Dogma 1. However, I played the Dark Arisen version. And I only played it for the first time a few years ago. It was already older when I played it. And I fell in love with this game. When Dragon's Dogma 2 was announced, I was like, yes, let's do this. I'm pretty sure I speak for a lot of people. I realized playing Dragon's Dogma 2 why I loved Dragon's Dogma 1. And that was mainly because of the DLC. Dragon's Dogma 2 doesn't have that. Dragon's Dogma 2, the combat's fun. The game looks great. The story's absolute trash. The monster variety is extremely small. Like once you've fought one troll or giant, you've done them all, or Cyclops or whatever. It's the same creatures pretty much throughout the game. There's less classes or whatever. I forget what they're called in the game. Played the game for like 35 hours, maybe not even that long. And then, I haven't touched it since its initial release. I'm hoping there is going to be a DLC. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments below if they've already announced there's going to be a DLC or not, because maybe they're not even planning on doing one. But if I really hope they do, because that'll get me back. Next up, I have Unicorn Overlord. So, 9 and up, I enjoyed all these games. Unicorn Overlord I did not finish, unfortunately, but I probably put in like 40 to 45 hours. This game really takes me back to playing something like Shining Force or something like that. It is a tactical, turn-based strategy game, but the combat itself is fully automated. So you have all of your RPG elements that you do outside of battle. There's an overworld, which you're doing all these like little quests and gaining armor, going into the town, gathering resources and things like that. And then when you go into the battlefield, you move your units, but all of your units, it looks like one unit, but it's actually a group of up to a certain amount. And then you do your battles when you clash with other dudes. And then it's kind of like a rock, paper, scissors as to like what type of units beat other units or do more damage. But then, of course, there's gear involved and stats and levels and things like that. So it's very deep. The story it's honestly not that anime, even though the art style is extremely anime. The story's not really that anime. It's pretty good. I thought it was pretty decent. I think the general the story from the beginning was what the queen of a region was getting overthrown, and then her son got taken away by like the first knight or whatever, and he raised him to be a warrior, and then now he's the prince trying to reclaim, his land from the evil bad guys. Okay, maybe that is JRPG as fuck. I don't know. Anyway, game's good. I should go back and finish it. Core Keeper hit 1.0 in 2024. This was actually one of the later games that I played. I loved about 90% of what I played. I also did not finish this game. There's kind of a theme here. I got to the late game, and there was, look, I'm fully expecting a lot of farming, but the farming is RNG as fuck, and this was really bothering me a lot, and I just wasn't having fun at that point. I was having fun for the first 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 hours. I was having lots of fun. And I was playing this right before I started Satisfactory too. And so, because I hadn't played Satisfactory yet, doing a lot of the automation and everything like that it was really cool. I was having so much fun doing all of that. And then it just became not fun because I was playing for like another 5, 10 hours, making practically zero progress. All right. We have Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree. Personally, I do not believe in DLCs on a Game of the Year list. But so many people did this. So many people are putting it on there. So I'm putting it on mine. You can kind of put this with an asterisk as to where it would fall, where it would lie. I'm still putting this as number 7. However, I don't even actually know if I mentioned this in other videos. I made a few Elden Ring videos as well. But I am probably a unicorn in this opinion base. As someone who has enjoyed Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, Bloodborne, all their DLCs, Elden Ring base game, I enjoyed, but I actually think for me personally, is one of their worst games. Now, that being said, as I think it's one of their worst games, it's still better than 95% of the other games out there, okay? So I'm not saying it's a bad game. I still think Elden Ring, if I'm judging it with every game, just all games out there in general, it would still probably be like an 8.5 or 9 out of 10 for me. Shadow of the Erd Tree, however, I think is their worst DLC. And let me explain why. I'm going to do this briefly. I talked about this, I'm sure I did anyway, in my thoughts video on Shadow of the Erd Tree. The content landmass of that's in the DLC is massive. It is massive, okay? And there's a lot of verticality to it, which in theory is really, really cool. And just the innate fact that the land space is massive actually is not a problem. The problem is that they don't utilize like half of it. Like half of the DLC's landmass is nothing. I mean, there might be some monsters, And you run around, and your reward is sharpening stones or whatever they're called. Upgrade materials, but they're upgrade materials much lower tier than what you would need for the weapons that you're going to be using at this point when you get to the DLC. And once you get to the DLC, you most likely have the bell bearings, so you can just buy them from the vendor. So the rewards are worthless most of the time. 2, base Elden Ring reuses a lot of assets. I did not really, I didn't criticize it really for a lot of that because the game is so huge. Like, it is beyond massive. Okay. Shadow of the Erdtree reuses a lot of the same assets again. And then they just kind of do some tweaks. Okay. I don't know. I just felt that the overworld was not fun. All of those giant golem dudes that did the fire out of, whatever. Terrible boss design, in my opinion. Or mini boss, whatever you want to call them. Mini boss design. The game... And normally this is a thing that's like a really good thing about like From Software games is where you can just kind of go in any order, in any direction you want to go and do things. Yeah, you can do that in Shadow of the Erdtree. However, you're going to severely be, handicapping yourself if you don't do things kind of in a certain order. There's actually like an order to do it of like what bosses you should do. Like at the beginning, right? You really should be going towards the dancing lion first. And after that, then you probably want to start working towards Renala, whatever. The Twin Moon Knight chick. Doing that dungeon. But then you also can't forget about the south and all of that side stuff. The amount, like, one of my best friends went through the DLC. First boss they did was Renala. Then they went straight towards Mesmere. And then they skipped Mesmere and then was doing all this stuff in the jungle area. And then, what? I don't know. And then they were like, having a really hard time because it felt like they skipped a bunch of stuff, but they didn't know what to do. Last negative thing I'm going to say about the DLC. And to be fair, I fought the final boss pre-nerf. The boss was complete bullshit. 2, I understand lore reasons why you fight him. However, it still was dumb. I would have much rather you fought the final boss where it became some kind of like... I mean, I understand you already fought... spoiler alert, you fight Radon again. But this time you're fighting Prime Radon. Radon in his prime. Rather than the Radon that you fight in the base game, which is, his basically, completely scarlet rotted self, right? So he's extremely weakened and all this kind of stuff. I would have preferred to either A, have fought something else entirely, or, maybe some weird amalgamation monstrosity of fusing with him and Mikola or whatever, because otherwise it almost felt like I was just fighting the twin princes from Dark Souls 3, even though you only fought Radon. A lot of his moves were the same moves from the base game, actually. I guess maybe not. And it felt like a lot of his moveset was just super fast to be difficult for the sake of being difficult. Not because it was tricky, something that you could like study and learn. No, you just needed insane reaction time, which normally their games are not like that, right? They're more about being able to identify what's going on and then being able to counter it. And, you still have to execute, but you don't need like extreme reaction time. It's not Sekiro or something. Which is why, and I will say this now, some praise for the game, Mesmer is an incredible fight. In fact, so much so, I think he is the best boss in the entirety of Elden Ring. Better than any base game boss. I think Mesmer is absolutely fantastic. Midra is pretty good as well. But yeah, the Radon, I don't think so. But at the end of the day, it's still better than like 80, 85% of everything out there, right? So it's still, it's just comparing it to their own games, the pedigree that FromSoft has built from all their past games for the past, 15 years or whatever. And then this, I don't know. All right. I also just realized I have this order wrong. I'm going to do that. Knock on the coffin lid. Any Slay the Spire fans, this is for you. This game, I didn't finish it because I realized it was going to take me an extremely long period of time to be able to finish this, to get all the endings and everything like that. But that's actually one of the cool things about it. You have 3 characters. You unlock them slowly. Each character has, you can do, I don't remember how many classes they all have. They have a set amount of classes. They have a decent amount, like 3 to 4 maybe, different classes that they can run, and that means they have different cards and different abilities and things like that, weaknesses and unique little gimmicks to them. The maps, it's always the same actually, which is really cool because that means you can then learn the routes. The bosses at each one, though, there's a few different ones that can kind of like RNG switch and things like that, and some of the encounters, but it's always like, okay, this one's going to be an encounter. Boom, we know that. This one's a treasure chest. Yes, we know this. This one is like a blessing thing where you choose your blessing or whatever. This one's a vendor. Those are always all the same. So then you can kind of plot out in advance. Okay, I'm going to go this route, this route, this route. Okay, I'm going to go this way. Okay, if I want to finish this quest to make sure that I get the right item here, I got to go this way. I really like that. I actually wasn't sure I was going to like that at first. At first I was thinking maybe I wanted full RNG every time. No, not necessarily. Because this allows you to, think about what you want to do and plot out your course before you do it. And then you can execute it. And not much to talk about, really. Like, it really just feels like Slay the Spire with story, I guess. It really is kind of like what it feels like to me. It's very, very Slay the Spire, which is a good thing. Next up, I have Satisfactory. We talked about Core Keeper earlier, how I talked about how I really like the automation. Satisfactory is like, oh, you like automation, I hear. How about we give you a game that's all it is? Didn't finish this game either. Honestly, I think I was just getting burnt out because I literally went from Core Keeper straight into Satisfactory. Still put in probably around 60 hours. Really, really loved everything that I did in the game. If they have another kind of big major update, I'll probably dive back into the game again. This is obviously for people who just love building, there is good exploration, but yeah, building, getting the satisfaction, getting pun intended, of making all your systems work together and things like that. That's like the beauty of it, getting all your factories running. And then once you realize, oh man, I got a whole line of getting my coals going into this, and then that's then making the iron, and that's making that, and then when that's going straight into then now making the other it's really, really satisfying. But I guess the main, like I said, I kind of stopped playing because I definitely was getting burnt out, and there's no threat in the game, and I think that's actually one of the things that I felt like I was missing. I need some kind of threat, something that's some opposing force for me when I'm playing anything, Anyways, next, number 4, we have Astrobot. This game, not much to say. It's amazing. I have nothing bad to say about Astrobot. If you have a PlayStation, buy it, play it. I don't care if you don't like platformers. Buy it and play it. That's all I need to know. Next up, number 3, Black Myth Wukong. So I went into this thinking my thoughts on this have changed. I've made thoughts videos on it. I probably disagree with myself on this now. this game, I was always telling myself, this is not a Souls game. This is not a Souls-like. It's an action RPG. Okay, well, a Souls game is an action RPG. This game utilizes a stamina resource, so you can't spam abilities. The game really does incentivize dodging, with dodging mechanics, learning and mastering your enemies' move patterns. That's Souls. Level design. That's Souls. It's very much Dark Souls. You have the shrines for is your bonfires. I definitely have a lot of criticisms with this game, actually, more so than some of the other games that are even further down my list. However, the highs of this game are so damn good. The game is gorgeous. It's probably one of the best visually, just pure raw visual looking games that I played in a long time. I think Horizon Forbidden West might be the last game that I played that I just thought, when I'm looking around, like, this game just looks freaking incredible from a pure visual standpoint. And the game is smooth, snappy. Combat was fantastic. I honestly can't wait to see what else these guys do, what else the devs make. And yeah, I'm going to say, man, I think Chinese game developers they're really putting their foot on, what's the phrase, guys? Let me do it down below. They're putting their mark in the gaming space, where, for the longest times, right, the developers, it's always Japanese game developers and Western developers. When you thought of games, from the East, from Asia, you just generally think, oh, Japanese games. Korea's been kind of coming out with a lot of gacha games and the Korean MMOs, because they're different, right? But other than that, normally you just think of Japan. But China is a massive country, dude, with a lot of money. So I enjoyed it. I thought the story was great. I thought all the end chapter segments were fantastic. I thought all the bosses were cool. I really liked the armor system. Some of the optional bosses were really cool. I thought the game was fantastic. Overall, I had a blast. But I'm, maybe a little biased in that I just enjoy third-person action games. And then with RPG elements. Really like that. Number 2, in any other year, this would have been my number 1. In any other year, man. Metaphor Refantasio is what I wish all the Persona games were. I know a lot of people have said that they love Metaphor, but they still prefer Persona. Now, I'm going to be real. I've only ever played Persona 5 and Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. Those are the only 2 games of that ilk that I have played before. I love Japan. I love the setting in Tokyo, Japan, all that. However, I just cannot stand games. I'm a high school student. Oh no. What do we do? Now don't get me wrong. I still love Persona 5. I still love the game. And there absolutely are things that I feel like Persona 5 does better than Metaphor. And I think one of the things that it actually does better is a lot of the individual identity when it comes to areas of vibes, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. But Metaphor, for me personally, is the best game I've ever played by these guys. The setting is far more interesting to me. I love fantasy settings. I would love to see a sci-fi setting, to be honest. But I love the archetype system. That being said, I would have preferred the more complexity of personas. So that's another thing towards the Persona games I think is better, because it's a little more complex and it's a little deeper, but the archetype system's still pretty good. And come on, guys, can we finally at least make a game where the main character doesn't look like a doofus? I don't know. Music's great. Voice acting's great. The art style is phenomenal. The main story was good. Very good. Love the villain. Love pretty much all the side characters. Like, all the characters, dude. It's just really, really good. All around. Metaphor's great. Turn-based. Fantastic. I love the fact that they added the mechanic where, like, You can just restart the fight from the beginning at any point. You can kill monsters that are lower level than you in the overworld without having to ever fight them and still get full XP and loot. Yes, please. This needs to be a normal. This needs to be the norm. Looking at you, other JRPG devs. But let's talk about number one. A lot of people are not going to agree with me on this, but that's okay. I'm biased. But it's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This game was... I put 160 hours in my playthrough. I still have a little bit of fatigue from it, which is why I haven't gone back and played it on hard mode to get the Platinum Trophy. And then, of course, the PC version came out, so it's like, you know. But I'm going to probably still go back and play it on my PlayStation just to get the Platinum. This game is incredible. There is no way. There is just no way they are going to make Part 3 better than this game. It's not possible. It's impossible. Do you hear me? Part 3 cannot be better than this game because this game is so damn good. They literally took the combat from the first game. It's just better. Just straight up, it's the same combat and better. Now, I know some people are actually like, I hate the combat in the remake, but I'm sorry, this is the best combat in any Final Fantasy game ever made. Ever. In the history of Final Fantasy games, this is the best combat. Not only does it flow well, it works, it looks badass, it feels badass. It's just the best combat system in any Final Fantasy game ever. And I would love to see a new mainline Final Fantasy utilize this system, but like in a different game. Like, make a Final Fantasy 17, finally bring back parties, and I'm talking like parties in the sense, I'm not talking like 15, right, where you always had, it's just the same four characters the whole game. I mean, you know, maybe have a cast of like between like 7 to 8 characters, but you can only use 3. So then players can, you know, choose and pick their parties that fit their personality or whatever, you know. Please. Anyway. We all, you know, any of us who play the original Final Fantasy VII, you know, we all know the story. The developers had already, you know, they had already said where the game was going to end, so we knew where the game was going to end before we even played it. And we were still just blown away. A lot of the changes and the added stuff to the game, I felt like was perfect. If I have to criticize anything in the game, it has nothing to do with the main story. The main story is... Okay, no, I do have one spot I have to criticize because I forgot it's part of the main story. And that is Kate Sith's, or Katchi's, his dungeon, which is the Shinra mansion. Okay. That's a little ridiculous, guys. It literally felt like that entire level was put in to be like, Sony came down to Square and be like, guys, you have to do something that utilizes the controller. Okay. I guess. Because you have Barrett with you the whole time. Why on earth are you making me control Kate Sith and having to throw boxes when I got to do with a gun? Hello? What? Whatever. Outside of that, my only complaints with the game is... So I have no issues with there being a bajillion minigames in the game. And them also being fleshed out. I actually think that's amazing. I love it. But if you're going to do that, you gotta try. And most of them are all really good. I'm going to call you out when 1 or 2 is trash. The first one that comes to mind is the damn sit-up minigame. Oh my god. It was like the first time in a very, very long time that I actually wanted to throw my controller at the wall. It was so stupid. The controls were so bad. I eventually got it, but it was like, it took me a very long time to do that stupid minigame. Like the pull-up one in Remake Part 1 was already hard enough, but at least, you know, it was manageable. Like, it was very hard, but you could do it. The sit-up one, because you're alternating pushing the triggers, and then you have to like spam push the triggers, and like, who in the world like has their... Okay, that doesn't look right. Anyways, You know what I'm saying? That minigame sucks. The other one is the Cosmo Canyon one, where you're the flying chocobo through the rings and shit. That one's pretty bad too. I'm just saying, that one's pretty bad. But let's talk about Queen's Blood. They've already announced that it's going to be back in Part 3. Best Final Fantasy minigame ever. Arguably best minigame in any game ever. But, I mean, Gwent is pretty good. And there's some others I'm sure that are good. I mean, I still love Triple Triad. But I do think Queen's Blood takes the cake. I love that. You know, I honestly had a blast with the one with the Red 13 and the soccer balls and all of that. I thought that was fun, you know? I mean, it's just me. You know, the Punch-Out thing, I thought that was fun. You know, a lot of the minigames were really, really fun. Now, some of the optional stuff, like I said, some of the optional stuff has maybe some stuff that's not some of the funnest. The forced things with the cactuars where you're working towards getting all in the cactuar weird minigame things, you know, you have to, especially when you have to use Aerith. You're always using Aerith or Yuffie, right? Those are kind of rough. The added, this is all spoiler stuff, guys. The added Gilgamesh stuff to the game. Loved it. I love Gilgamesh. He's one of my favorite Final Fantasy characters. Dun 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 dun. Okay, sorry. But yeah, for me, this game is just, it's like a 9.8 out of 10 for me. Like, this game is so good. Like I said, there's just no way they can make Part 3 better than this game. It's just not possible. Like, they can make it pretty good, like, and still make it a very solid, great ending. You know, it's just like when you look at Star Wars. Empire Strikes Back, by far, right? In the original trilogy, it is by far the best. You know, Return of the Jedi is my second favorite. But Empire Strikes Back is just way better. It's just the way it is. The second installment. You know. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching if you've made it this far. I just thought, why not? I just need to upload some videos to YouTube. And I realized, you know what? I played more than 10 games that released in 2024. Let me do my list of my games that I played. You know, any comments down below? If you agree with my ranking of these games, maybe list some games that I should have played that was from last year. I know I did not play Stellar Blade, which I've heard is actually a good game despite, you know, ass. I never played Rise of the Ronin. I heard the game was okay, but it was one of the games I wanted to look at. I never got around to playing. I started Stalker 2, and I just didn't get really into it. So I've decided that I'm going to wait until I get my new computer. So I'll probably be playing it sometime this year is when I'm going to play Stalker 2. But I know there's that. But yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of other games that came out. Let me know down below what are your favorite games of 2024, guys. Like the video if you want to see more videos. Subscribe. Again, this stuff all helps. I'll still be uploading stuff related to whatever I'm streaming on Twitch. Please follow me on Twitch. Check me out. I am live usually every day, but every Thursday and Friday, 100%. Alrighty, guys. See you next time.